Welcome back everybody, and as usual, let's talk shotguns. But today is something special because we're going to cover a game mode that I've always been a big fan of, and that is Iron Trials. What is the significance of it? Well, to put it simply, your health gets boosted from 250 points like in normal Warzone modes to 400, where you now have 250 base health instead of just 100 with 150 points of armor. This means those time to kill values are going to go up, and overall it just makes the game feel more breathable. One of my biggest complaints about Warzone as a whole is that you die so insanely fast, there's not much room for error. Since someone can kill you so quickly, virtually anyone with decent aim can still delete you even if you've put in thousands of hours into the game and they only put in like 30. With more health, you can make more bold plays and be able to outmaneuver a bit more since you can take more shots. It isn't for everyone, and mainly sweats like me are probably going to want to play it, but I wanted to offer my usual input of the state of the shotgun meta for it. Since we have more health, it changes things a decent bit, and some of the shotguns you may think would be really good may end up hurting you in the long run in this game mode, and some that were pretty avoidable can maybe come out to play a little bit more. So we're going to go over some time to kill values for most of the shotguns, then talk about the ones that stand out, and I'll give you my top 3 picks for the best shotguns to use in Rebirth Iron Trials, with the class setup as well for each. As usual, look at the timestamps below if you want to skip to any part of the video in particular. First, let's check out some time to kill values with this handy little graph, which I modeled after JGod's own version of it. I like the way it was implemented, so shout out to him for the idea. What you're seeing is a table of most of the shotguns in Warzone currently, with the range at the top and the time to kill of the shotgun at that particular range in milliseconds, and at the far right you have the shots to kill for the corresponding time to kill. You may notice there's a few missing, mainly the Vanguard shotguns, and to be honest, I don't think they're going to be that worth it in this particular game mode. Certainly not any more than the other shotguns here. Yeah, they can still work, it's just these are all pretty much more ideal for different scenarios, and even though there may be 1 or 2 classes that might work decently from the Vanguard shotguns, I think overall they just have kind of been brought down to a point where they really don't function as well as some of the others, like the Modern Warfare Cold War ones. But if you think of a decent class setup, let me know. I'm still going to cover Vanguard shotguns, just not in this particular video. Also, the lever action, the Ironhide, is missing simply because in a practical sense, it's one of the worst shotguns since you have to hit the head and the neck to get any of its decent damages. And when it comes to normal Battle Royale, it's fine, but it's probably going to be much harder in this game mode. Also, slugs aren't on here, but that's going to be covered later in this video. I promise I'm going to get to slugs. So anyways, looking at this graph, you can see I organized it from the time to kill that is the fastest at the top. And if you look on the left-hand side, it's the VLK Rogue, funny enough. Now, this is different than a normal Battle Royale with the 250 health, because even though you can 2-shot, in this game mode, a lot of the semi-autos and the spammy guns, like the Streetsweeper and the Jak-12, their time to kill basically goes up in those close ranges and the far ranges, of course, but with the pump actions, they can still 2-shot in the close ranges because they're dealing over 200 damage, just about 204 or so. And what that means is their time to kills up close didn't really change, so in a way, they're kind of a little bit more buffed in this game mode. And also, since it's a pump action, you have to play it with a little bit more finesse, and because you have more health, it lets these pump actions, or the VLK Rogue and the Model 680 and the Hauer, come out to play just a little bit more because you have more of a chance to react and get around cover. So these are going to work a lot better than they did in other game modes. And just look at that time to kill. 458 is no joke. It only extends out to about that 3-meter range, and this is with no attachments other than the ammo type. I haven't put any barrel attachments or suppressors or anything like that. That is a very competitive time to kill, and of course the catch here is that once you get past the 3 meters, it's going to take a little bit longer, and then with the VLK Rogue in particular, it's a little bit weaker than the other pump action shotguns because that range, it doesn't just go to 4 shots to kill, it instead goes to 5. So it goes from 3 to 5, where the other pump actions just go from 3 shots to 4 shots. So that's kind of the trade-off here. I usually prefer having that Model 680 with that extra range and damage. It packs more of a punch, but the VLK Rogue up close is a monster because that time to kill, it's great. It's perfect for this game mode. You were going to delete people if you were point blank or just up close. And since the time to kill is so much longer, it's going to really affect how much time you have to get to cover, and it's going to be benefiting you if you're using this type of shotgun more. So that's really exciting stuff. Now, next we have the Streetsweeper and the Jak-12. Those are kind of very similar, but the only difference is that the Streetsweeper with the reinforced heavy barrel, you're going to get that even shorter time to kill because of that reinforced heavy barrel. That really helps with that time to kill. And the only caveat with this one and the Jak-12, of course, is that your shots go from taking 4 to 5 in these ranges, and then it takes 8. So it's a big jump. It's a big jump in damage there, and that's really going to hurt your time to kill. Honestly, not as good as I was hoping at ranges, but of course, these are still usable in this game mode. You just have to be more concerned about the distance and how close you are more than before. But of course, it's also a little bit more forgiving with how much health you have. Then the Jak 12, of course, similar to the Streetsweeper, it just has better range essentially. Then the Gallo with the reinforced heavy comes in next, and this one is good. It's not as good with the Origin's range, but it does have a pretty good time to kill, and although you do sacrifice that range compared to using the Origin, you have more mobility, and overall it's going to shoot and kill a little bit faster, but again, you have to make sure you're in that range. In a surprising turn of events, we actually have the Howler that's kind of halfway up on the list, and the time to kill for it is actually pretty good. That's pretty solid, but of course the only caveat is that really only goes out to that 3-meter mark, so you're still going to have to play around corners and finesse people with this gun, but that's a pretty respectable time to kill for a pump action. It's better than the Model 680, but I would argue the Model 680 is still better if you're going to play with that kind of finesse I was talking about. But then we have the Gallo, the normal Gallo, which is basically like the Origin 12, but better mobility, just has less range, so the choice is kind of up to you what you want to use. If you want to be quicker, then use the Gallo. But then we have the Model 680, of course, it's usually down on the bottom of the list, and this one's no exception for this game mode, but the only difference is that up close, it's still going to only take 2 shots, which is really good. And the Model 680, out of all the pump actions, has the most insane 2-shot kill with just Dragon's Breath, and that's going to take it up to about 11 meters for that 2-shot. But of course, in Iron Trials, it's not going to be a 2-shot, it's actually going to be a 3-shot. So the time to kill, it's about 1700 milliseconds. So that's a little bit of an oof, but it's still really good. And again, if you're playing with that finesse I was talking about, playing around corners and cat and mouse, it can really work well, especially also since this game mode is only duos. You don't really have to worry too much about, the third party coming in, or rather not third party, but the other 2 teammates coming. So the most you have to deal with is one other person, and so it's a little bit more manageable. Then at the bottom of the list, we do have the R90 with Dragon's Breath, and even though it is at the bottom, it's pretty solid. If you look, that 900 milliseconds is a little long, but it goes all the way across to 8 meters. So if, again, you're playing the cat and mouse, it's really good. It's not that bad at all. Of course, though, once you go to 9 meters, it's going to take 5 shots to kill, not just 4. It goes from 3 shots to a 5-shot, and that's really tough with that kind of, intermission between shots. Then we have the 725 with the sawed-off barrel, and the sawed-off in particular because the regular one's pretty crappy. And yeah, that's a pretty long time to kill, but honestly, it's still not too bad again with the cat and mouse, but I don't really recommend it. I just wanted to kind of throw this in there so you can see, with 2 shots, it's not going to work. It's going to take at least 3, then 4, and then 5, and that reload time really stacks up. And this is being generous because I was throwing in that sleight of hand kind of buff that I got recently, that little stealth buff where it's 850 milliseconds to reload if you're, actually canceling the reload. So that's me being generous with this time. So as you can see, there are a lot of options to go with here, and there's some pretty decent time to kills. But now what I want to do is go over slugs, and more specifically, what I'm going to cover. I'm going to cover the Jak 12, baby, and I'm going to cover slugs on this bad boy because yes, even in Iron Trials, these things are insane and out of this world. I mean, they are just awesome. I used them a couple games and I was always like, kind of have my jaw on the floor because I'm like, no way is this actually killing people this effectively. And yeah, it's even better in Iron Trials, I think, because people are so caught off guard and you can down people so fast at pretty good range. So let me get into what I'm talking about now. So if you look at the damage and the ranges here, up close, all it takes is that 2 headshots, and of course it's going to take about 3 body shots, which is great, but that's not really practical since that's not really the range you're probably going to be at with this sort of gun. So if we look at the next one, up to 6 meters, if you hit just stomach shots, it's going to take you 4 shots to kill, which brings you a time to kill of about 600 milliseconds, which is very, very good. That's really solid. If you manage to hit 1 headshot though at that range, you'll take just 3 shots, which is a time to kill of 400 milliseconds. So are you starting to see the power here now with this gun? That's great, but again, it's only 6 meters. So let's take it up to that 17 meter mark. And this is with no attachments, the base gun with slugs, right? So it can get better than this. So up to 17 meters now, it's going to take 4 body shots, chest or stomach, it doesn't matter if you mix, which means again, a 600 millisecond time to kill. 17 meters and 600 milliseconds for a time to kill is very good in Iron Trials, but if you throw in again 1 headshot, all it takes is is 1 headshot and 2 body shots. So you guessed it, the time to kill possible at 17 meters is 400 milliseconds. That's twice as fast as some of the other guns are going to be at that range, and after using it in game, I can tell you it really might be one of the strongest guns in Iron Trials, except for maybe the bugged out marksman rifles that are one-shotting right now. But absolutely give this one a try. I'm not going to go super in depth with all the class setups and stuff. I'm just going to show you what they are now. First, for the JAK-12 with Slugs, we have the Forged Tech Marauder to help with that bullet velocity in that range. Then we have the 5 mW laser for that panic hip-fire moment when you need to have a tight spread, and also the sprints of fire speed. Then the Jackrabbit Ultralight for the aim down sights movement speed, because you do get a little bit slower with the Forged Tech Marauder. Then of course the Slug Mag and the Merc foregrip to help with the aim down sight speed, and that kind of helps with that recoil control, which it can be a little bit annoying with this gun since it is a little bit bouncy. Next up on my list of guns you should try in Iron Trials is the VLK Rogue. Of course, we have the Forged Tech Marauder. It's going to give you the best range out of all attachments. And then we have the Warlord Barrel for even more range, since that's really important for this particular gun, because of course you don't want to be in that 5-shot kill range, but you also don't want to slow yourself down too much. So that's why we're using the Warlord instead of the Tsar. Then we have the 5 mW laser again, the no stock attachment, and 8-round Dragon's Breath. This one's for you spammy shotgun lovers out there. We have the Streetsweeper, which has one of the fastest time to kills in the game. We have the Agency Choke, which hurts range by a little bit, about 3 or 4 or 5%, which isn't that much. It's definitely worth the trade-off. Then we have the Reinforced Heavy Barrel for range and also fire rate, the Ember Sighting Point for range, no stock for the sprints of fire speed, and the 18-round mag. And even though that was 3, I'm going to give you a little bonus here, and that is the Origin 12 with slug rounds, because even though I didn't cover it, it's very similar to the JAK-12, except it has a little bit more power up close. It actually has, I think, a 262 headshot damage up close, which is really nice. And also, it does have more range. You can get those 4 shots out to about 25 meters, so it's another great addition, but I think people gravitate towards the JAK-12 more. But anyway, this class is the monolithic suppressor for, of course, being suppressed and a little bit more range. You don't really need it with this gun. Then we have the 5 mW laser again for tight hipfire spread, the Solo Zero Optics Mini Reflex, that's just kind of preference, so you don't need an optic. Then we have the no stock attachment and 8-round slugs. So overall, those are the setups I think are pretty nasty. Of course, you can make a lot of these other guns work. I want to make the Model 680 work. It's totally doable, but those are sort of the top picks for me that I think you should definitely at least try, because they're just kind of monsters in their own right. And so let me know down below what you think of these picks. Do you have any suggestions for me to try in this mode or anything I should look at? And with all that being said, guys, I'll see you in the next video.